Thanks. I'm not in SEO, as you know, I'm in advertising. But there's some similarities. Each of us have to kill the competition. And now, before I start, you should know it sounds like I'm angry when I talk. I'm not angry, that's just how I talk. I run creative departments, and that's how you have to talk. I want to talk a little bit about how you get an unfair advantage and what the stupid people are doing wrong. What the numbers are in my business, I'm sure it'll reflect the same in yours, but in my business, in the UK, in all forms of advertising and marketing, we spend £20 billion every year. Of that, 4% is remembered positively, 7% is remembered negatively, 89% isn't noticed or remembered. That's 89%, roughly 18.5 billion quid pissed away by so-called experts. Yeah? So, what are the experts doing wrong? Well, they are people who think complicated is clever. They don't understand, they like to impress each other in meetings with how complicated their language is and how they know all the long words and all the latest technology and all the latest jargon. And in meetings, that might work. Doesn't work to punters. Punters immediately tune out with anything complicated. If you are not absolutely stone dead simple, you're part of the 89% that isn't noticed or remembered. The complicated stuff only works in presentations with other people who like complicated stuff. It doesn't work in the real world. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Can you play that video, please, number one? Just watch this.
But it didn't happen, and one of the reasons is because we were using that soft language, that language that takes the life out of life, and it is a function of time. It does keep getting worse. Give you another example. Sometime during my life, toilet paper became bathroom tissue. I wasn't notified of this. No one asked me if I agreed with it. It just happened. Toilet paper became bathroom tissue. Sneakers became running shoes. False teeth became dental appliances. Medicine became medication. Information became directory assistance. The dump became the landfill. Car crashes became automobile accidents. Partly cloudy became partly sunny. Motels became motor lodges. House trailers became mobile homes. Used cars became previously owned transportation. Room service became guest room dining. And constipation became occasional irregularity. When I was a little kid, if I got sick, they wanted me to go to the hospital and see the doctor. Now they want me to go to a health maintenance organization or a wellness center to consult a healthcare delivery professional. Poor people used to live in slums. Now the economically disadvantaged occupy substandard housing in the inner cities. And they're broke. They're broke. They don't have a negative cash flow position. They're fucking broke. Because a lot of them were fired. You know, fired. Management wanted to curtail redundancies in the human resources area. So many people are no longer viable members of the workforce. Smug, greedy, well-fed white people have invented a language to conceal their sins. It's as simple as that. And we have no more old people in this country. No more old people. We shipped them all away, and we brought in these senior citizens. Isn't that a typically American 20th century phrase? Bloodless, lifeless. No pulse in one of them. A senior citizen. But I've accepted that one. I've come to terms with it. I know it's here to stay. We'll never get rid of it. That's what they're going to be called, so I'll relax on that. But the one I do resist, the one I keep resisting, is when they look at an old guy and they'll say, "Look at him, Dan. He's 90 years young." Imagine the fear of aging that reveals. To not even be able to use the word old to describe someone, to have to use an antonym. And fear of aging is natural, it's universal, isn't it? We all have that. No one wants to get old, no one wants to die, but we do. So we bullshit ourselves. I started bullshitting myself when I got to my 40s. As soon as I was in my 40s, I'd look in the mirror and I'd say, well, I guess I'm getting older. Older sounds a little better than old, doesn't it? Sounds like it might even last a little longer. Bullshit, I'm getting old. And it's okay, because thanks to our fear of death in this country, I won't have to die. I'll pass away. Or I'll expire like a magazine subscription. If it happens in the hospital, they'll call it a terminal episode. The insurance company will refer to it as negative patient care outcome. And if it's the result of malpractice, they'll say it was a therapeutic misadventure. I'm telling you, some of this language makes me want to vomit. Well, maybe not vomit. Makes me want to engage in an involuntary personal protein spill. Thank you all.
Okay, that's that's an example of the sort of language. We don't speak in ordinary language anymore because we think it makes us look silly. Everyone's got a university degree, so they've all learned to make it complicated as possible. So what I've learned is smart is simple and complicated is stupid. Einstein said, if you can't explain it to an 11-year-old, you haven't really understood it. So our business is full of people who couldn't explain anything to an 11-year-old. We think complexity proves we're intelligent, but it doesn't. It actually proves we don't know how to go beyond complexity to get to simple. We think we start with simple and make it complicated. No, any idiot can make it complicated. You start with complicated and make it simple. The problem really happened when technology replaced thinking. And there was so much speed to catch up on in technology, and more technology began happening more and more faster, and then more and more theories about how people thought, and pretty soon you've got no time to think anymore about what's actually going on. You've got too much, all you're doing is keeping pace with the new technology, the new jargon. So if you ask anybody in the creative department what do, they'll tell you that they're either in content curation, or they're in heuristics, or they do algorithms, or they do big data, or they do native advertising, or they do storytelling, or they do mobile optimized wearable tech, or they do cross-platform media rich solutions, or they do memes, or they do tropes. Or they might tell you that they do CRM, or CSR, or CTR, or CMS, or UGC, or KPI, or ROI. Now for me there's only 3 letters missing, which is WTF. Rory Sutherland said, we spend so much time thinking about how marketing works and how social media works and how direct mail works, we've taken our eye off a more important question. How do people work? We've gotten so sucked into the technology, we're not even talking to people anymore. And then we wonder why 89% of it doesn't work. The current thing everybody's sucked into is big data, and everybody must talk about big data, and everybody must have an opinion on it, and everybody must know. Dan Ariely, who wrote Predictably Irrational, a book about behavioral economics, he said, big data is like teenage sex. Everyone talks about it, nobody really knows how to do it, everyone thinks everybody else is doing it, so everyone claims they're doing it. The truth is, we don't understand what the media is anymore. We've lost the thread. We're so busy talking about all the different technologies and all the strands and all the data and all the algorithms and all the heuristics. We've forgotten what we're doing, what we're supposed to be doing. So let's go back and have a look at the history of media. This is the punter. You know what I mean by that? I did this talk once in Germany, and afterwards these Germans, businessmen, came up to me and said, oh, we have a question. We do not understand this new demographic you are talking about. What is punter? Sorry, it's the consumer. This is the consumer. So the first way, years and years back at the very beginning, how you tried to get to the consumer was with posters. You all know those, Lautrec and the great French posters from the 20s. Then it changed, and Americans found print, and we would get to the consumer with print advertising. Then it changed, and we found TV, and we would get to the consumer with TV advertising. Then it changed, and we found online, digital, and we would get to the consumer that way. Then it changed, and we found social, and we would get to the consumer that way. All different ways, constantly changing, and pretty soon it will change to whatever the next thing is that's going to be brilliant, and it will kill everything else, and nothing will ever be the same again. So everything's always changing. Do you notice one thing on there that hasn't changed, one thing on there that doesn't change, one thing on there that will never change? The punter. That's the actual media. These are just technologies. They don't press a button on themselves. They don't make themselves work or go one to the other. If you want to go viral, and if you're any good at all, you want to go viral. Viral means you get into what we used to call word of mouth. So I can get, if I run an ad once, that my money's spent. But if I run an ad once that gets a guy talking to it to another guy to another guy to another guy to blah, 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 pretty soon I've increased my spend by 10 or 20 times. My ad's been repeated 10 or 20 times, it's gone viral. So that's why you want to go viral, because you increase your budget. It's free media when anybody talks about it. So if I can get him to talk to him, to talk to him, to talk to her, to talk to her, pretty soon we've gone viral. Pretty soon everybody's talking about it, and I've turned a £10 million budget into a £50 million budget. But that doesn't happen here. This is technicians. It happens here with a great idea. It has to be a great idea, not a new technique. When social happened, it didn't kill TV. When online happened, it didn't kill print. These are all mixtures, things that happen together, just different things for us to use, different things on our palette for us to use. This is where the great ideas happen, and this is where it goes viral. David Abbott said, shit that arrives at the speed of light is still shit when it gets there. It doesn't change a bad idea into a good idea because you used an interesting technique. If it's dull, it will still die. Let me give you, for instance, of what I mean. Can you play the second video, please? Just listen to this tune. See if you know it. Okay, anybody know that tune? Greensleeves. Pretty much everybody know it. Anybody know who wrote it? Henry VIII, well done. Henry VIII wrote it, 500 years ago in 1530. He was married to, I think it's Catherine of Aragon, and he was trying to pull Anne Boleyn. And Anne Boleyn wasn't interested, and she used to tip up at court every day with this dress he was particularly impressed in, which had big green sleeves. And so he wrote that song, and the words to it are, "Alas, my love, you do me wrong to cast me off discourteously, for I have loved you so long, delighting in your company. Greensleeves is all my joy, Greensleeves is my delight, Greensleeves is my heart of gold, and who but my lady Greensleeves?" We learned that at school. Pretty much everybody in the country knows that song so well, like a nursery rhyme, they even got it on ice cream trucks. So that's pretty much can be said to have gone viral. 500 years ago that was written. Where the fuck was YouTube? Where the fuck was Google? If you need new social media to go viral, there wasn't even any electricity then. There was barely any printing. Anything done before 1990, why the fuck has any of that gone viral if you need a viral media to make it go viral? You don't, you need a great idea. Something that catches on with the punters. Then it goes viral, and they use whatever's around. They use email, they use letters, they use phone calls, they use graffiti, they use their own mouths to tell each other about it. It will go viral because this wants it to go viral, the human brain. Now, that's where the opportunity is for us not to be in the 89% that isn't noticed or ignored, that isn't seen or noticed or remembered. To be in the 4% that remember positively or the 7% that's remembered negatively. Even that works. You don't have to be liked, you have to be noticed and remembered. What you absolutely mustn't be is the 89% that isn't noticed or remembered. That's a waste of money. So, Bill Bernbach said, well, actually, if you know anything about behavioural economics, you know it's described as human understanding for business advantage. Human understanding for business advantage. That's two things, right? So, human understanding, Bill Bernbach described that as simple, timeless human truths. So before we can get to business advantage, we have to understand, as Rory said, we have to understand how people work. Simple, timeless human truths. People haven't changed. You might have every 10 years we have a new technological gimmick, but people haven't changed. People are still the same. Whatever their race, colour, age, creed, sex, people are still the same. So what are the simple, timeless human truths that we can use human understanding for business advantage? That's behavioural economics. Okay. The advertising, like anything else, is a conversation with a purpose. And a conversation with a purpose to make something happen. So, how does that work? Right, let's keep it simple, because we know there's power in simplicity and weakness in complexity. So, from the day you're born till the day you die, every communication where you want something, every human being has to have 3 elements. None of this is new. You knew all this. Every bus driver, every cab driver, every housewife, every shop assistant knows all this. But as soon as we get into the massively sophisticated world of advertising and marketing, we forget all this because we're far too clever for this. But this is what bus drivers and cab drivers know. Every communication's got 3 elements, and it must work this way. It must have impact, it must have communication, and it must have persuasion. If it hasn't got those 3 elements, it can't work, and it must work that way round. You can't start with persuasion and then go into impact. If you haven't got any impact, no one knows you're there. And if no one knows you're there, nothing else can happen. Once you've got impact, at least you're on the radar, at least they know you're there, at least now you've got some attention. Now, if you don't communicate, then they don't know what you want. So you've got to have communication. And once you've got that, the question always is, well, what's in it for me? Why should I do it? Once you can answer that, impact, communication, persuasion, you've got a sale, you've got a working communication. So we all know this. It's, we do this 10 times a day. Imagine it's Wednesday night and I'm at home watching telly and I'm watching football on the telly. And I want a cup of tea. But I don't want to get up and make a cup of tea in case I miss a goal. But the wife's sitting there, she's not watching the football. She could make me a cup of tea. But she doesn't know I want a cup of tea. And if I just think it, it's not going to happen. So what I've got to do is stage 1. I've got to say, Kath. In the end, she says, what? I've got impact. Stage 1. Now, if I was to try and communicate with her the way most modern advertising does, I'd say smooth, refreshing, sunshine, sunny slopes, warm family feeling, nice mood. That's the way most stupid advertising communicates. But we don't do that. We're normal human beings. So I say to her, make us a cup of tea. I've got impact, I've got communication. She knows I want something, now she knows what I want, but she doesn't yet know why she should do it. She said, well, make it yourself. So I've got to think, what's in this for her? Well, I think, well, Wednesday night, the dustman come round on Thursday. She doesn't like putting the garbage out, the little black plastic bin bags. So I say, I'll tell you what, if you make us a cup of tea now, when the game's over, I'll put the garbage out. Now, if she buys that, I've got a sale. Impact, communication, persuasion. We do it 10 times a day. Can you think of any reason you wouldn't want that as a brief for any ad or anything we do? Impact, so it gets seen. Communication, so it's understood. Persuasion, so it promotes action. And yet you won't find that. The most important sentence on any brief is never written on any brief. I've worked in this business 40 odd years, I've never seen it. The most important sentence on any brief is never written on any brief. What's the most important sentence on any brief never written on any brief? People must notice this advertising. Never written on any brief, it's automatically assumed people will notice it. So consequently, 89% is pissed away, 18.5 billion quid, because people don't notice it. Everybody takes this bit for granted and spends all their time down here on persuasion, having strategy meetings, having new briefs, debriefs, research groups, more meetings, more strategy, more briefs, more papers, all down here, and then that's where all the work is. And they issue that, and the creative department goes online on YouTube, finds a new technique, punts that up, and that's it. And then because you didn't do any impact, nothing else can happen. So you might as well have not done anything. You might as well have kept your money in your trousers. So what we know from the numbers, 4% remember positively, 7% remembered negatively, 89% not even noticed or remembered. That's where the opportunity is. 89%, you don't want to be part of that. Even if you get noticed negatively, you can still work. We all know ads we don't like on the telly, but we remember them. So they work, so they got a chance of working. It's not about doing something if you can do something people like, well and good. But that's not the job. We all know ads that people like and they can't remember who they're for. Oh, I love that ad with the puppy and the baby, isn't it cute? And you go, who's it for? Oh, I don't remember, but I love that ad. That's no good. Bob Levinson said, the test is, find an ad you love and take the product out. If you still love it, it's a lousy ad. It's a nice piece of film, but it's not an ad. So, impact, if you've got impact, you've got a chance of the rest working. If you've got no impact, you've got no chance. So how does impact work? Okay, again, to understand that, we need to understand the human mind. So the human mind, I'll give you this two ways first. First the punter's way, then the university way. This is the punter's way. I'm going to keep it dead simple. So imagine this is a commercial, right? So here's a commercial break. Here's the first commercial. Here's the second commercial. Here's the third commercial. Here's the fourth commercial. Here's the fifth commercial. Here's the sixth commercial. And here's the seventh commercial. Now, the break's over, and you go to bed, wake up next morning, go to the supermarket. Which one of those commercials is most likely to have survived that erosion process? A cab driver could tell you, a bus driver could tell you, a housewife could tell you, a shop assistant could tell you. But the people in advertising are too sophisticated to know which of these ads. Is it this one? Is it this one? Is it this one? This one? This one? This one? Or this one? Which of those ads survives the erosion process? Was it this one that Ridley Scott shot and it cost a fortune? Or was it this one that won the Cannes Award last year? Or this one that Swedish director did? Or was it this one that's got the great soundtrack? Or this one that got all those likes on YouTube? Or was it this one that everybody liked and talked about in campaign? The one ad they won't talk about is that one. And any cab driver, any bus driver, any housewife can tell you which of those commercials works best. And it's the one that doesn't look anything like the rest. Because what your mind does, this is the software your mind works on. You can look this up. It'd be really good for you. It's called Gestalt. What it is, that's the software your mind works on. Your mind programs itself like when you're born. If you've got any children, you notice they're in what Freud calls a state called id, and that is they're just thrown into the world and they don't know anything. Or they don't know they're even them. They just know stuff is coming at them. There's a load of stimulus, sound, noises, smells, and id just means everything. Everything is everything. Gradually, over the first few months of their life, they stick everything in their mouth, you notice. Their fingers, their cot, their toys, their toes, everything goes in their mouth. And gradually the software programs itself. If it hurts, it must be me. If it doesn't hurt, it's not me. So there's a me that's separate to everything else. That's how they learn. That's called ego. That's when they move from id to ego. Ego just means I am. They learn that they're a separate being by biting things, and the pain programs into the mind that there's separation. That's why I can move this, but I can't move that. Now, that's how the mind works, really fast. Binary like a computer. Always a 0 or a 1, always on or off, in or out, up or down, black or white, hot or cold, left or right, long or short. Always a choice between two things, really fast. And your mind is a pattern-making machine. So if I do that, how many digits did I hold up? You know that I actually held up 10, but you didn't have a chance to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What you saw was 2 hands, 5 each, 2 5s is 10. And your mind did it like that. Your mind creates a whole world out of that Gestalt program. What you experience now is a world created by Gestalt. What use is that to us? So, given that we are trying to buy real estate in the mind, and that's the most valuable place, what we know is the mind always divvies things up into two. It groups things. If there's a whole load of stuff, it will look for the biggest commonalities and group it into two. This is very useful to us when we're trying to position ourselves, meaning reposition the competition. If we position it, we haven't repositioned ourselves unless we've repositioned the competition. What do I mean by that? So, this is the mind. And here it's full of 19 identical commercials. Yeah? And I had one more identical commercial. Now, what share of your mind have I got as a percentage? 1 out of 20. 5%, right? So, but what if I do this? Knowing what we now know about Gestalt and your mind grouping as a pattern-making machine, what if I do this? Now what share of your mind have I got? Well, we know your mind groups things into everything that's like that and everything that's not like that. So now what I've got, simply by being totally, totally different, I've not only positioned myself, I've repositioned everybody else. Now I've got 50% share of your mind. Gone from that to that. That's really powerful repositioning. Now, give you for instance of that, that's not to do with advertising. Just what I mean though, in advertising terms, you would see Volkswagen did that, Nike did that, Apple did that, Avis did that. If you go back and look at, I haven't got time now to tell you, but if you go back and look at your history books, you can learn how the people who've done this have done it properly. But a pretty obvious one, I'll ask you a question. If you know the answer, don't shout out, hold your hand up, right? Every time I say that, someone shouts out. Don't shout out, hold your hand up. If you're American, particularly, don't shout out. This is an American question. We know you know the answer if you're American, so don't shout out. But if you're English, British, who was the 44th President of America? Anyone? 1, 2. I can see 2. There might be a couple more. But only 1 or 2 is what I can see. Okay, let me ask you a different question. Who was the first black president of America? Anyone know? Everybody, right? It's the same bloke. What I did was ask you, first off, I asked you the question this way, where he's just another zero, another president, like 40-odd white guys, and everyone from Reagan to Lincoln to Kennedy to George Washington. Yeah? Then when I say, no, wait a minute, what makes him totally different and repositions everybody else, who's the first black president, then there is only one contender. And he immediately repositions everybody else as just a load of old white guys. Yeah? That's an example. As I say, Avis did it, Hertz did it, Avis, Nike, Apple, Volkswagen. Volkswagen killed Detroit with it. When you learn that, I mean, that isn't easy to do that. That's really hard. That's the gold standard of what you're aiming for when you talk about positioning. There's a great book on this by Rees and Trott called Positioning: The Battle for Your Mind. Rees, R-I-E-S, and Trott. Positioning: The Battle for Your Mind. Anyway, I've only got 2 more things to say, which is the reason for you to learn this, what I'm talking about here, and the reason it's dead simple and why it's useful is Rory Sutherland said, creative people have a fear of the obvious, but they must sell their work to people who have a love of the obvious. Your clients love the obvious. How can you sell something that seems daring to people who love the obvious? How can you sell something to a client who just wants to do he doesn't want to take risks, he wants to do exactly the same as everybody else in his sector? How are you going to sell him? First off, you've got to educate him. First off, you've got to tell him why doing this exciting, seemingly daring work isn't just creative aerobatics and showing off. It's actually good sense not to be like everybody else. Because being a client, nobody ever taught him that. He didn't go to art school. Nobody ever taught him that. Being a client, all he wants to do is, if I do what everybody else is doing, I won't look stupid. So the usefulness in all of this is in educating your clients. It's really dead simple, and it educates clients about why looking different is good business sense, not just tricksy. And the final thing about keeping it simple is a quote from David Ogilvy, who said, strategy is sacrifice. Now, you really want to think of that when you're thinking about complicated, and when you're in a room with someone who loves all the complicated language and loves to make it and people who want to prove how clever they are by using the latest jargon and the latest buzzwords and packing in as much as they possibly can into each brief and packing in as much as they possibly can. Strategy is sacrifice. John Pierce, who used to run Collett Dickinson Pierce, which was for a while the best agency in London, if not the world, he used to say that if I throw you 10 tennis balls, how many can you catch? And the answer is, if you're lucky, 1. But the odds are 9 to 1 it will be the wrong tennis ball. And after I've spent my money, I wish I'd only thrown you the right tennis ball. So once you put all that effort in at the beginning and just throw the 1 tennis ball that is absolutely essential the consumer catches, before you even pick up a pen and start doing ads, just reduce it, strategy is sacrifice, down to the absolutely one essential thing that they must get. Because every night you're going to be seeing, well, in SEO it's probably even worse. You're going to be seeing how many things before you get a chance to flick past whatever yours is, and the more you clutter it, the less chance you've got of them stopping on it. The more you strip it back, the more chance you've got. So strategy is sacrifice. Okay, thanks.